All right, this is crazy. Long time coming. The election results came in. Trump won in a pretty much a landslide. Definitely getting the Senate, probably getting the House, won the popular vote. Where do we go from here? What is there to learn? What hope do we have? What's the path forward? Obviously, a lot of Trump voters are hoping that he will deliver for the American people. From what I understand, most of them are really not thrilled about him or his attitude and the way he carries himself and conducts himself and the things that he says, but are hoping that somehow he's an outsider, a change agent who will take on the moneyed elite and improve the country for regular, everyday Americans. Do I think that he's going to deliver that? Absolutely not. I mean, I think there's a slim chance because I think that he's pretty impressionable, and maybe uh, if he starts to do some positive things and he gets positive feedback, his ego will lead him in the direction of doing more positive things. But for the most part, he's demonstrated himself to be a complete self centered, power hungry narcissist. I mean, my intent here is not to bash Donald Trump. So here we are. Trump got elected. What are the consequences for the next 4 years? So I think there's a very slim chance that Trump is actually going to deliver for the American people. His policy ideas don't really demonstrate that. His previous actions don't demonstrate that he's going to deliver for the American people. He was elected on the tail end of, great inflation that took place partly as a result of COVID and supply chain shortages. I mean, we actually fared pretty well compared to the rest of the country, but this is not me making an excuse for Democrats. If the Democratic establishment and Joe Biden and, Harris and that whole administration really wanted to address inflation, why weren't they talking about price gouging 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I mean, where were they? Really all they could come up with. I mean, there were some positive policies, at least from my perspective. The Inflation Reduction Act helped spur the adoption of renewable energy and electric vehicles. We're still getting left far behind by China on that front. So it's not to say that nothing positive happened during the Biden administration, but clearly we're not addressing the problems that are immediately affecting Americans in their pocketbook, nor are we addressing the deep systemic problems. I was born into the Reagan administration. If you look at wealth and income inequality, you can see that money in politics has corrupted our political system and created worse and worse wealth and income inequality my entire life. So at what point does the tide turn? At what point do we get money out of politics? The Democratic establishment isn't the answer either. So what is the answer? I've thought long and hard about this. I don't really know, right? I don't actually know the answer, but the best answer that I can come up with so far is the renewal of the principles that our country was founded on. Actual representation, people power. So we need to rise up and start electing politicians that will actually serve us and do our will. We can't let the propaganda machine funded by the billionaire class affect our psyches and how we view the world. I mean, frankly, Trump's campaign was one of the most funded by billionaires ever, but Harris wasn't free of that either. So this corruptive influence is pervasive across the political spectrum. We need a new way. Like, we can't just be stuck with which side of oligarchy are we on. Like, we need a new option. So how do we get that new option? I think people are hungry for it. I think that if we can get an insurgent candidate, probably on the Democratic side, but I'm happy if they surface on the Republican side, who actually wants to have good faith conversations and lead the American people to true reform. We need freedom fighters. We need people that are willing to take on big tech, big pharma, all this regulatory capture. We need a government that actually works for us. Now, we've got a government so dysfunctional that people are willing to just say we need to shrink government and drown it in a bathtub. Now, I mean, sure, we should probably shrink government. There's probably tons of inefficiencies that we need to address. But good government is our only hope. I mean, good government is the people banded together, electing leaders to have collective power and serve us, right? So this is our only chance of taking on the powerful interests. I think it's a big mistake to just think that half the country is horrible. I live in Trump country. These people aren't bad people, not at all. And I know liberals too. They're not bad people. There's fanatics screaming on both sides, but that's not what unity politics is about. Unity politics is more about the center 80% reasonable people who want to depolarize and join forces to take our country back. So I think there's going to be an opportunity. I think there's going to be an opportunity in 2028, in 2026, given the likelihood of a chaotic and dysfunctional Trump administration. We need to take over the Democratic Party. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. I'd be happy to see it happen on the Republican side. I just don't see the likelihood of that under the circumstances. So this isn't an anti-Republican thing. It's just, how do we break the two-party corporate duopoly? Well, the system is rigged against third parties. We have a winner-take-all system. This naturally results in two-party dominance. So the only way forward that I can see is that we, the people, need to take over one of the parties and actually champion the will of all Americans and have a unity movement that brings labor movements, working class people together. And we're going to have to give deference to the will of the collective. I mean, we're not going to get everything we want, but if we band together and agree to disagree on the things that we can agree on, we're going to get a bunch done, and we'll start to actually have faith in our system again and not put our hopes in self-centered billionaires. Are they really coming to save us? They're not. They're not going to save us. And if we continue to allow ourselves to be divided, I think our future is pretty bleak. But we don't have to do that. We absolutely have a say in the matter. I guess I'll just leave you with this, is that there is hope. We're going to have to band together, and there is a way out. So don't lose faith, but don't put your faith in any corporate establishment figure. They're not going to help. But anyway, there'll be more to come. I'm in this for the long run. I do think that we have to start now. Like, we can't just wait until late in the political game to get this movement going. We have to be starting now. Bernie almost won. I know a lot of people use that as an example of how an insurgent populist, a benevolent populist candidate can't win. But the fact is, he almost did. And I think people are more fed up than ever. And it's absolutely possible to win. And in fact, Trump, whether you like it or not, Trump is an example of an outsider winning. He took over the Republican Party. We can do the same in the Democratic Party, but in a benevolent unity politics fashion. The hard part is bringing together people from across the political spectrum and dropping this spell of polarization that has kind of corrupted our minds. If we can work together, like MLK talked about in the Poor People's Campaign right before he was assassinated. I don't think that's a coincidence. Maybe it is. But if we can truly unite together, we have unbelievable amount of power. We are unstoppable if we join together. So just let that sink in. Be open to joining together with these folks that maybe you saw as the enemy, but once you talk to them, realize they're not, and how powerful we are if we actually join together. So I'm saying this right after the election to plant the seed. It's going to be a process. We're going to have to start now and cultivate that seed. I think this is the way forward, is through unity politics and taking over the Democratic Party with anti-establishment figures. The establishment isn't delivering for us. They haven't been delivering for us, and they can't even win and protect us against the likes of Trump. So that's out the window. That's over. We need a new path forward. I love you all. I really deeply love our country. I think we have a tremendous amount of potential. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here. I'm starting. I'm talking to the camera. This is weird for me. But I'm going to continue doing it, I think. 4 years is a long time, and I'd like to think we're in a much better place by then, or at least have much better prospects by then. So thanks all. If you want to give me a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. All the encouragement I can get to keep this going. I hope to get a lot better at it and more articulate and share more specific details about what this unity movement could look like and how we get to a positive place from here. All right. See you later.